"Don't touch that envelope," she said, voice flat, hand extended as if taming a wild animal. The boardroom's lighting cast a cruel glare against the polished table, every eye fixed on him. He didn't flinch. Instead, he turned the sealed offer letter between long fingers, slow and deliberate, then looked up. 5 seconds, he said, each word carved with certainty. "If you're going to tell them, do it now." Silence splintered the room's tension. She shifted her weight, then tapped a pen once against her ring. No one moved. Her chief of staff's voice tight, "This isn't the time, people are waiting." He regarded her, then the table. "I didn't ask for your seat." His thumb pressed the envelope closer across the lacquered wood. A journalist hissed, "What's in there?" "You know," he answered softly, "you've always known." He slid the envelope to the edge. Her hand hovered uncertain, half surrender, half defiance. One more second, holding the silence. "Choose," he said, "that was all. Some truths demand daylight. Stay until the very end." It started 3 weeks earlier, at 1:22 a.m., in a downtown hotel lobby that never quite forgot the shape of last year's ghosts. He'd only just finished his shift when the call came. Another database patch, another lost password, another piece of hardware swapped under flickering fluorescent lights. The IT badge clipped to his pocket read, "Staff." The clip cracked where his daughter had pressed a satin ribbon for luck before he left. He'd learned to put weight on his right leg when tired, the other still stiff from the loading dock incident no one at the help desk cared to remember. They booked the cheapest non-smoking room in town, one with a window his daughter liked because it backed onto a neon sign. "So I won't be scared, Daddy." He was about to hand over his ID when the front desk attendant looked past him. A woman approached with clipped steps, sharply cut hair, and a silence about her that made the junior staff scatter. She didn't look at his face, just the name on the reservation. "Mason Green," she read aloud, tone bored, "we don't have your room." He pointed calm, unrattled toward the glowing vacancies sign behind her head. "We have a confirmed reservation. I called to double-check because of my daughter." She inspected her screen theatrically. "Ah, IT technician, maybe the system flagged your card limit. Happens a lot with contractors." Her smile was precise, her voice clipped. "Try tomorrow." Rosie stood behind him, satin ribbon clutched in her fist, small and silent in pink sneakers. He placed both hands flat on the counter, face impassive. "Is there a specific policy I missed?" he said. There was a quiet force behind it. The woman shrugged, "Priority guests first, company event in town." He turned his left foot just so to relieve his knee, then met her gaze. "We'll wait." He folded the crumpled confirmation printout neatly, as if handling official documents. The attendant behind her exhaled, lips pressed tight, but said nothing. The woman turned away. "Who told you contractors could stay here anyway?" she said, voice floating over a shoulder, not even sparing him a backward glance. He didn't answer. Instead, he rested his palm gently on Rosie's head, steering her toward a faded vinyl bench where night shift security snuck glances at their phones. The lobby's TV played muted news. Rosie fidgeted. Somewhere overhead, a laugh echoed from the lounge where a private conference for Vierk's tech investors was marching late into the night. Mason closed his eyes and counted to 9. He would not give in, not tonight. Back in their two-room walk-up, Rosie pulled the covers over her head, the ribbon trailing from her hand. Mason knelt beside her with the same attentiveness that once helped him field dress wounds with duct tape and silence. He brushed her hair back. "Can we sleep in a room with stars again, Daddy?" Her voice barely carried beneath the blanket. He checked his phone. Saturday's shift meant no overtime, and rent loomed in a calendar alert. A reminder, 11 days and shrinking like breath held too long. He tucked a note into Rosie's lunchbox anyway, a folded scrap of printout from work. "Remember, just because someone says no doesn't mean you can't try again. Love you, Dad." Rosie peered up at him, careful. "Do you always have to fix everything, even when it hurts?" He paused, hand on her pillow. "Not everything," he whispered, then looked away, jaw twitching. What he didn't voice, the remnants of his wife's perfume still lingered on her old scarf, knotted at the end of Rosie's bed, a detail that meant nothing to anyone else. The memory of the fire department chaplain, hat in hand, the smell of engine grease and charred cotton in the clinic room, the box of medals she never saw. When the phone buzzed, late call from the help desk, he let it ring out, drank the coffee he'd left to go cold, and left a $1.25 tip on the steps for the janitor who mopped early. The only things left from before were the battered laptop and a challenge coin kept in his drawer, always face down. Morning came with errands and a quick drop-off at school. In the hallway, Rosie asked, "Are you leaving another note for me?" He handed her lunch, eyes crinkling. "I never miss." She pressed her ribbon into his palm just for luck. "Keep it with you, it's magic." He closed his fingers around it tight, always. Across the city, in a penthouse office at sunrise, someone else was rehearsing how to wield silence as weapon and shield. Helena Dimitriou didn't rise from her chair as 3 executives filtered in, their steps muffled on custom wool. She pointed at the untouched decaf, gestured for more. "Stats 20 seconds, I listen, you leave, understood." Her voice was iron, final syllables clipped. One assistant began, "Last night's investor feedback." She interrupted with a raised finger. "Not numbers, outcome, are we approved, yes or no?" He faltered, checked notes. Review board still deliberating, could go either way with FDA. A spreadsheet blinked to life behind her. Helena's brow never furrowed. She rotated a Mont Blanc pen 3 times between her fingers. "Move up the software patch. If those servers fail, they don't get another shot. And send a driver for my son after school. No mistakes." They nodded and retreated. She turned at last to the single photo on her desk. A laugh frozen mid-yell, her husband clutching their toddler, sky behind them so blue it hurt. A sticky note, "You're luckier than you think," still faded at the bottom right corner. She checked her phone, unread texts from therapists, a hospice bill unpaid, 2 missed reminders for grief sessions she never scheduled. The silence in the office was by design, she'd often thought, made to keep the world's noise out, but it did too good a job at keeping her own in. A call came in, name withheld. She listened, silent, until the voice on the other end finished. "We've had a problem with a guest. Room mix-up, contractor, night shift. He's not happy but didn't make a scene." She sighed, eyes going glassy. "Move his name to the bottom of the list. If anything else, call me." Her chief of staff, Mark, appeared at the threshold, file in hand. "One update, Helena. The IT contractor, the one from last night, wrote a note to the desk about the system encryption, wants to fix a glitch." "Decline," she said cool. "We have bigger things at stake." "Understood." She watched the city from 13 stories up, sunlight catching the rim of her untouched coffee. Alone, but for the memory that never faded. In the hotel's nerve center, long hallways flickering with chalky emergency lights, a blinking terminal had stumped 2 leads and a manager. Software won't authorize guest cards, no one could trace the digital lockout. Guests queued restlessly at the counter. The priority list was corrupted, and with FDA regulators due for a walkthrough, patience was thin. Mason, badge lanyard askew, knelt by a server rack. Rosie's pink ribbon was looped between his knuckles. The junior tech beside him muttered, "It's got to be the 2 FA tokens or maybe a firmware lock." Mason didn't reach for the keyboard. He scanned the monitor, eyes narrowing at a nested code, XOR string 5 digits deep. He leaned in, fingers dancing over keys, tap, tap, his lips tight. On-screen letters changed, a backdoor reset. "Not the tokens," Mason said evenly. Encrypted pointer misfired, switched the admin's route, reauthorize in 5 seconds and the locks will update. The junior tech watched, steps backward, unbidden he gulped, "How did you?" Mason pressed enter, the guest list auto-filled, he stood favoring his right leg. "It's just math," he murmured. A manager hurried toward them, hair wild. "Who's responsible here?" The junior tech gestured, "He fixed it in 5 seconds. His voice was nearly reverent. Helena entered, immaculate, arms crossed. She surveyed the monitor. "Lucky timing," she dismissed. "Any tech could do that with a manual open." The manager frowned, but the system was working. Helena's gaze flicked to the ribbon on Mason's finger, then away, already looking for the next crisis. The junior tech lingered, not moving as he watched Mason slip out the staff door, carting past a line of unresolved tickets. He'd seen something familiar in the man's posture, the way he looked through problems, the way he left a mess cleaner than he found it. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. Over the next 72 hours, the fix became a faint undercurrent in staff chatter. The junior tech Ellis looked through half-lost company spreadsheets, searching Mason's contract records. The name matched, but the background check showed a blank for 4 years, like someone had erased giant blocks of a life. He dug deeper. One document, hidden among offer rejections, popped up in a forgotten folder. Declined, clearance level 5, Sigma Consult founding team, signed non-engaged 2019. The signature was Mason's and the recipient, Helena Dimitriou. At lunch, Ellis ducked out, phone in hand, passing Rosie in the parking lot. She wore her ribbon tied through her hair that day. She stopped by a tree, watching ants circle her shoe. Out of nowhere, she looked up at Mason, who was stacking tray returns at the door. "But she needs a friend," Rosie said. The words landed out of the blue. He set down his last tray, hand still. "Who, hun?" She shrugged. "The hotel lady. She looks lonely." He didn't answer, only stared. Sometimes children understood fault lines adults ignored. Upstairs, software updates burned through bandwidth. The Virx tech launch required FDA files unlocked and pushed to secure servers in 30 days, or regulatory approval would slip through their grasp for another year. An email from Helena arrived. Deadline immovable. Expedite. That afternoon, a black Mercedes rolled up to the dock, driven by a woman with dark glasses and a clipboard. The company fixer, Carla. She brushed past Ellis, eyes narrowed. "You're in my way," she snapped. He countered quietly, "You're here for the IT guy." "Only if he causes problems. Where is he?" "In the lounge," Ellis said. "I'll get him." He found Mason by the big server stack. "She's here for you," didn't look happy. "I am not causing problems," Mason replied. His fingers worked, removing his badge. "But I'll step outside." Carla intercepted him in the entryway. "The CEO prefers not to have contractors hanging around. You understand, right?" Her smile was more warning than warmth. Mason regarded her even. "I'll finish what I came to do. You need this system up for tomorrow's briefing." A pause, brittle. "You'll be paid for today, that's it." He shook his head once. "You need it fixed properly, not just patched. I don't want extra pay, just let me do the work." He folded the pink ribbon into his shirt pocket. Ellis watched. Something was shifting. The day ended on a razor edge of waiting. Pressure knotted as time ran short. Helena's emails began to arrive at a new, clipped cadence. "Who authorized this? Deny access. Lock down all guest accounts not on Virx tech payroll." She called Mason's employer red flag for combative conduct. Next, Rosie's school received an anonymous donation, then without warning, a call suggesting Rosie might not meet criteria for extended hours programs. That evening, Ellis cornered Mason in the break room, voice low. "They're making you pay for doing things right, maybe reconsider." Mason was silent, his phone buzzed. He pressed the call button, his voice stayed neutral, body coiled. "This is Mason. Yeah, you can come now." He ended the call, locked his screen, and set his glasses neatly atop the vending machine. At school the next day, Rosie sat apart at lunch. 2 kids whispered, "Her dad's not allowed here anymore." She didn't look up, just wound her ribbon tighter. He should not have made this her problem. The gala invitation was printed on cream stock, embossed with Virx Tech's lighthouse logo, and sealed with red wax. It was never meant for Mason, but Ellis made sure one found its way to him. The boardroom crackled with anticipation that night. Rows of seats filled with local press, senior engineers, and skeptical board members who sensed change more by the air's density than anything spoken. Helena entered, commanding in cobalt blue, notepad under arm. She surveyed the assembled faces. Her hand briefly pressed the outer pocket of her suit, as if searching for the faded sticky note from that old photograph. The table at center waited, a packet labeled "Clearance, Founder Confidential" at its edge. Mason arrived, shoes polished, shirt pressed, more himself than he had let anyone see in years. Rosie's ribbon was now a tiny loop beside his watch. He stood quietly, hands behind back, as if awaiting permission to stand down. Ellis took the first risk. He slid a decade-old sealed envelope to the center, voice steady. Before we move to the agenda, there's an artifact some of you should see. A hush descended. A reporter clicked a pen, eyes darting. Helena's hand froze. Staff watched for cues. Ellis read, declined offer, level 5 clearance. Dated spring 2019, signed by both parties. Helena's face paled, her jaw shuttered shut, and her knuckles bleached white against the tabletop. A journalist asked, "You're saying?" Ellis nodded. He was offered what you have now. All eyes turned to Mason. He looked at Helena, gaze plain. "I never asked for the seat, you took it from me." A silence, deep as the gulf between high-wire ambition and old grief. The CEO's hand hovered above the envelope, unsteady. "You know," Mason said, soft but audible, "you've always known." No one spoke. Bystanders averted their gazes. The assistant pinched a folder so tight the edge creased. A junior board member clicked his pen. A journalist's lips parted, speechless. Helena's voice tried for steel but fractured. "Don't touch that envelope," she said, hand extended, not quite trembling. He regarded her not cruelly. "Choose," he said, that was all. 6 months later, the company's name was splashed across headlines. FDA approval delayed over internal misconduct, sources cite withheld founder artifacts. The board moved quietly. Helena stepped down with little fanfare, her photo still on the wall but eyes glassier now. Rosie skipped along the curb outside her new school, green ribbon now faded but proud in her hair. Mason waited on the steps, lunchbox in one hand, a new note sticking out. "Remember, sometimes being right is quieter than being loud." She climbed the last stair and leaned into him. "Daddy, do you still have to fix everything?" Her question was softer this time, less challenge, more wonder. He knelt, knees barely protesting. "Not everything," he said, "but the parts that matter." She smiled, handing him the ribbon. "Then keep this for luck." In the hush that followed, he tucked the ribbon away, heart steadier, not because justice had been served, but because someone had finally chosen to believe the truth. And in certain rooms, in the briefest silences, that was all that needed saying. A month after the headlines faded, spring pressed against the city's edge. Rain washed the glass of the train station, overtaking the old scrawled graffiti with shimmering lines. Mason and Rosie waited beneath the leaky shelter, a duffel bag at his feet. There hadn't been a family trip in years, not since before fate had redrawn the house's shape. Their tickets rattled lightly as wind worried the edge. Rosie swung her legs, brows furrowed in fierce concentration over a book. "Can I meet her one day, Daddy?" the hotel lady. He smiled softly, tucking a strand of her hair behind one ear. "Maybe one day, if she wants to talk." Rosie nodded, satisfied with the possibility more than the promise, then clicked her pen, blue ink now staining her cuff. "Will you tell her thank you if you see her again?" Mason hesitated, the words catching, so many things unsaid between grown-ups that children never doubted. "Yes," he promised finally, the lie and the truth indistinguishable in the drizzle. He looked out past the tracks where the storm grayed the air. The city was quieter now, the endless conference calls and urgent pings replaced by silence to fill as they pleased. There were still small battles, getting the water meter fixed, finding a school where Rosie's shoes didn't raise whispers, but something in him had loosened, released from the old, white-knuckle grip. Rosie pressed her forehead to the rain-dimpled glass. "What did the letter say?" she whispered without looking back. For a moment, Mason almost answered. Then the train blared its arrival and his reply was lost in the midnight hush. Helena watched the city from her apartment window, 13 stories above a street striped with taxis and morning runners. The boardroom had been silent when she left her resignation on the high-gloss table, her Mont Blanc pen rolling gently away from the signature at the bottom. She scrolled through the unread text from her son's music teacher. "He did so well on his solo today. Would you like a video?" Helena chewed her thumbnail, then typed, "Please send it. Sorry for missing the performance." She pressed her palm to an old sticky note, edges curling, words faded to ghostly graphite. "You're luckier than you think." Sometimes she muttered it aloud, trying the shape of hope in her mouth. Some days it was bitterness. Today it just was. Mark, her former chief of staff, had reached out once since the story broke. A short message, awkward in its brevity. "We protect what we can when we can. You did what you thought best. For what it's worth, I stayed because I believed you." She didn't reply. She couldn't. There were too many ghosts standing between the sentences. The news had moved on. Another medtech startup stumbled, another scandal for the algorithmic churn. Yet every morning her coffee cooled in the cup's rim, untouched, and she stared at the skyline, remembering how it felt when ambition was a beacon rather than a barricade. She deleted her calendar. She unplugged the office landline, watched her own reflection dim in the glass. Then, finally, she called her son's number, her voice a little steadier than it had been for weeks. He answered with music trickling in the background, laughter breaking faint as glass. "Mama, want to hear my song?" "Always," she said, soft as a benediction, always. Mason's days found new rhythms. He patched old laptops for neighbors who could not afford replacements. He rewound fraying power cords with electrician's tape, rebuilt servers in school basements. Each act carried the soft weight of ordinariness, no boardrooms, no secret clearances, just steady hands and quiet repair. At the library, he showed Rosie how to wipe an old hard drive, gently explaining, "Sometimes, to start fresh, you have to let go of what doesn't serve anymore. The machine won't mind, it's just waiting for someone who needs it next." Rosie bit her lip in thought. "Is that why you didn't take the letter, Daddy? Were you letting go?" He considered that, fingers brushing the faded ribbon slipped in his pocket. "Maybe, or maybe I knew someone else needed the seat more than me." She twirled a pencil. "But didn't she hurt us? How come you don't hate her?" He set down the screwdriver, smiling wryly. "You can be angry without hating, Rosie. Sometimes people do bad things because they're scared of losing something even bigger." She took this in, her gaze focused on the computer's blinking cursor as if it might spell out the rest for her. "Did you ever wish you'd done something different?" she asked. Mason leaned back, letting her question hang like laundry on a windless line. "Every single day," he admitted, "but wishing doesn't fix anything, only doing does." He scooped her up, her giggle rising, legs kicking, and spun her gently around. "And right now, I think we're right where we belong." Ellis lingered after hours by the old server racks, the air heavy with ozone and the low thrum of fans. He tucked a folder deep into the shelf's back. Mason's unsigned offer, Helena's resignation copy, 2 redacted clearance memos labeled Sigma Consult. He thought about the night it had broken, how the room's tension had rung louder than any company alarm. He was packing up when Carla entered, her hair newly silver, civilian now. She eyed the folder in his hands. "You keeping souvenirs?" He shrugged, pulling a half-smile. "Maybe I like remembering the way things fell apart so I can try not to do it the same next time." Carla huffed, setting her bag down. "We all thought we were the smart ones. Funny, isn't it, how it never really matters in the end?" Ellis searched her face, saw in it the exhaustion of too many shortcuts taken for all the wrong reasons. He asked, "Would you do it over if you knew what would happen?" Carla tucked stray folders under her arm, her answer rough. "Maybe I'd listen, actually listen, not just to what was loudest." She was halfway to the door before she turned. "And Ellis, you should tell him you're sorry." He didn't reply, not because he disagreed, but because he had never learned to say the words out loud. Still, he wrote them later, folded inside a battered thank you card delivered weeks too late, addressed only, for the parts that mattered. Summer unspooled, heat rising among the avenue's cracked sidewalks and lingering with the dusk cicadas. Mason's part-time hours firmed into a contract with the local school board, nothing glamorous but steady, and no more conference calls after dinner. Rosie thrived. She joined a coding club, her ribbon tucked firmly in braids as if to challenge the world to try her. One cloudless afternoon, as the bell signaled session's end, a familiar coupe idled at the curb, paint so immaculate it reflected the scalloped clouds overhead. Helena stepped out, a paper bag dangling from her wrist, her son trailing, hands jammed in his pockets. Rosie spotted her first, running with abandon across the field. "Daddy, it's the hotel lady." Mason stiffened, hand curling unconsciously around the ribbon. He rose only after Rosie had waved the woman over. Helena braced herself, smoothing the creases from her blouse. Her voice was lower, unhurried. "Hello, Mason, I hope we're not intruding." He shook his head, watching her, for once, hesitate, searching out words not made of iron. "My son started here last week." She gestured at the boy who hovered behind her shoes, self-conscious but bright-eyed. "It took some courage. I wanted to thank you for what you did." Mason weighed this, the awkward piece offering in her hands, the faded note now visible beneath car keys. She passed him the bag, homemade spanakopita, still slightly warm. "I remember you mentioned you missed it. I never thought I'm sorry," she said simply. "For everything. If I could take it back, I would." He glanced into the bag, the scent unlocking a memory years gone. Laughter in a kitchen, balsamic vinegar on fingers, a promise that family could come from anywhere. Helena's voice trembled just a little. "Someone once told me the truth doesn't always fit in an envelope. Thank you for letting me see that." Rosie skipped up, linking her fingers through her dad's as the sons and daughters eyed each other inquisitively. "Are you happier now?" she asked Helena, the question somehow both child's and ancient. Helena met Mason's eyes before answering. "I think I'm learning how to be," she said, her tone raw and kind. Rosie nodded sagely. "You can borrow my ribbon if you want, it's lucky." Helena laughed then, the sound startling them both. "Maybe I will someday." Mason felt something in his chest unclench. He extended his hand and Helena took it, not in negotiation but recognition. No contract, no signatures, just two people battered but honest in the lengthening gold of late day. Weeks slipped by, yielding to autumn. Rosie's coding club took first prize for a prototype app. Second Chance, a simple, brightly colored tool that found retired tech for kids who needed devices at home. She presented it in front of the PTA, voice unwavering, ribbon proud in her hair. Mason watched from the back, heart unguarded. After the PTA president approached him, hand extended. "She's something special," the woman said. "You did well." He shook his head. "She did it herself. All I did was stay near and not lose too much hope." The next morning, the school gifted Rosie a new set of colored ribbons. She handed the old, green one to Mason. "It's your turn now. You can use it for luck." He kept it wrapped around the battered challenge coin in his drawer, a small shrine to the everything that was lost and won. One night as they packed lunches for the next day, Rosie asked, "Will you ever fix things for them again, the people from before?" Mason spread peanut butter, careful and even. "If they really want the help, maybe, but sometimes all you can do is give them a toolkit and let them figure it out." She frowned, puzzled. "Then how do they know what's right?" He ruffled her hair. "Sometimes the best you can do is show up, stand up, tell the truth even if nobody's ready to hear it. The rest, it's up to them." Rosie pondered this, then slipped the last sandwich in her bag and hugged him tight. "You can be brave for them, Daddy, for both of us." His throat ached around the reply. "Maybe you're braver already." The late news flickered images of new leaders and old mistakes. Virx Tech's new CEO issued a public apology, future promises measured, the old guard quietly replaced. Helena's name was seldom mentioned, but a quiet retraction appeared on a back page. Founder's legacy reconsidered, critical tech origins verified by departing team member. The byline was Ellis's, anonymous but unmistakable. In a hallway dusk under the clock's slow hand sweep, Mason drafted a letter unsigned but written. He placed Rosie's ribbon on the envelope, knuckles still marked by the memory of boardroom glare. "To whomever finds this. Sometimes you fix things with code, sometimes with courage. Sometimes you simply have to refuse to break, even when asked nicely. Whatever you decide, remember it matters, if only to someone you've never met. MG." He tucked it into the battered server case at school. A message for the next lost technician, the one who followed and wondered, the one who lingered late when everyone else had already gone home. In her new house, Helena planted wildflowers. She rose early, dug brown earth, pressed knuckles into dirt, sweating through linen sleeves. Her son helped, giggling at worms unearthed, clapping at dragonflies. It was nothing like her former life, no order, no quarterly reports, no pre-selected results. Each Sunday she baked bread. Once she wrapped a loaf in wax paper, one for Mason, and Rosie wrote only, "Thank you for the truth." At last, Helena stood at the fence between gardens, her old sticky note tucked safely in her wallet. Sometimes she found herself whispering it, a quiet hope for her boy, for herself, for anyone else who might someday find their way through. On an October morning, Rosie wandered over with a jar of jam. They sat together on the low stone wall, knees knocking, exchanging sweets and stories. "Do you think people can really start over?" Helena asked, not entirely to anyone. Rosie considered, thoughtful. "If you put a new ribbon in your hair, it's still your hair, but maybe it feels nicer." Helena's laugh shook something loose in her. "You're wiser than most grown-ups I know." "Daddy says the hard things are where the magic is," Rosie said. She nudged the jar closer to Helena. "That's why we keep trying even when it rains." Helena nodded. "Would you mind if I tried your ribbon trick?" Rosie deftly tied a pink one around Helena's wrist, snug as a promise. "Now you have to make one wish," Rosie whispered, conspiratorial. Helena squeezed her eyes shut and said, "I wish for another chance to be kind." Rosie leaned in, whispering, "You already got it." Mason found peace not in noise, but in the hush that followed. The warmth of a child's hand in his, the resurfacing hope of old friends returned, and new alliances kindled in rooms small and large. He sketched out plans for the coding club's next project, taught students how to solder without fear, and wrote sticky notes for Rosie's lunches, each bearing some small truth. "You're braver than last week. Small steps count. Trying again is always worth it." Occasionally, he volunteered at shelters, fixing donated machines, swapping stories with folks who understood loss as a language. When one grizzled vet asked, "You ever get tired of fixing things just for them to break again?" Mason replied, "Some things are meant to be fixed more than once. That's where hope gets its practice." Sunday evenings grew into family dinners, Helena and her son joining Rosie and Mason, the table crowded with laughter, awkward silences, and the kind of apologies that grew into something else: acceptance. One night, as rain tapped the windows and the city glistened with headlight shine, Helena raised her glass. "To second chances," she said simply. Ellis sent a note postmarked from a new job in another city. "Keep telling the truth even if nobody asks, especially then." Mason smiled as he read it, tucking it into his drawer alongside the challenge coin and ribbon. The world was still uneven, sometimes unjust, but it was repairable, one kindness, one reckoning, one small note at a time. In the end, Rosie was right. Some truths demand daylight. But what Mason and Helena and Ellis learned, each in their separate rooms, was that healing does not depend on evidence unsealed or a headline's judgment. It lives in the brittle, awkward moments after, the brave, silent choices made when no audience waits. Sometimes it's an offer declined, a ribbon given, a letter never sent, and hands, once untrusting, joined at last over a table, neither surrender nor victory, just peace at last. And in the quiet that followed, when the past knocked gently instead of shattering glass, each found that sunlight returned, soft, persistent, as if for the very first time.